Welcome to Bleav In 76ers with your hosts, former 76ers point guard Eric Snow and two Sixers fanatics in Marcus and Teja Dash. Bleav In 76ers is presented by BetOnline.AG.
It's that time of the year again as college basketball takes center stage with the tournament finally upon us. It's March Madness, people. Let's go! If you're looking to wager this year, BetOnline is the number one spot for all your updated odds and info, along with great contests, including the bracket contest where you have a chance to take home the top prize. Head over to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV, to get started. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. BetOnline, where the game starts. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the 76ers Bleav In 76ers podcast. I'm Marcus Dash. I'm here with our host, former 76ers point guard Eric Snow, and my brother Teja Dash. How you guys doing?
Doing good. How are you?
Good.
Pretty good. You know, I know it's a 76ers show, but it's March Madness, and so we got to kind of talk about March Madness and where everyone has so far. Eric, I understand you don't have your bracket done yet, but the question I got to ask, and a lot of MSU guys who are following the show, they want to know how far you have MSU going this year.
Well, I mean, usually I have two brackets. You know, I have a bracket where Michigan State wins the championship every year. I'm faithful with that. And the other one, I kind of, go with, kind of who I think would win and when I think maybe someone can knock them off. I have never picked Michigan State to lose to a lower seed ever in my whole life. So that will not happen this year either. So we'll see which higher seed in my other bracket I'll see maybe who they can beat this year. So we'll see. It takes me a little bit. I usually wait till Wednesday night to finish my bracket, let some things digest, but I'll get it done.
So you have one for your heart and one for your head, huh?
Yes, exactly. The heart always wins the championship for me. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, of course.
I gotta say, so the one problem I'm having is, Coach K's final year, and he's going against another icon. If Michigan State wins and Duke wins in the first round, they would play each other in the second round. The problem I'm having is, I mean, if Coach K is going to lose to anybody, I think he would want it to be, Coach Izzo, not just some young punk. But like for him, I think I don't know. I think if there is going to be anybody who does it, it's going to be Coach Izzo. I mean, this
Coach K's had a great deal of success against Michigan State, so he may be happy if he sees Michigan State the record that he has with us. But either way it go, I mean, he's done a great thing for college basketball, and if Coach Izzo is able to knock him off in his last game, and if it comes to that, hopefully we win in the first round. I'll be excited to see it, even though I'll be disappointed to see Coach K go.
It's gonna be an interesting year. It's gonna be an interesting year. That I've seen all the experts. Everyone's kind of has a different like bracket and a different champion. So it's always fun. Moving on to the 76ers. So obviously our first show began on the day of the Nets Sixers game, which the highly anticipated game, which was not fun to watch. So we're gonna get into that right now. So our first topic. So since our last show, we've had 3 games: a blowout loss to the Nets, which I just mentioned, then a close win against the struggling Magic, which you could argue we should have lost that, then a choke job loss to the Denver Nuggets, and then so we're 1-2 over the last 3 games. So Eric, what have been your general thoughts over these past 3 games, and what are you seeing and what aren't you seeing that may be somewhat concerning?
Well, I mean, the first thing you've played some good teams. You played playoff teams. And that's the difference. So those expectations when you play those winning teams are raised. As far as Orlando's the type of team. What I'm seeing now is that can give us trouble. Young, energetic, athletic, a lot of guys that can go off the bounce. Teams are dribble driving us a little bit. You've seen even last night with Denver, get into the paint, being able to swing, catch and shoot. They just had they made some shots, but they had a lot of wide open shots. So it's my concern of guarding the ball off the dribble. They're getting guys, especially Orlando, the game, even New Jersey, they were getting to the paint They were getting by one guy, making people help, and then they were making no shots. So that's something that has to be addressed. Being able to stay in front of the ball, contain the ball, and not be able to allow teams to create such easy possessions as far as easy looks and easy shots. And those guys, they've been knocking them down the last 3 games.
Yeah, Teja, you were talking last night. You and I were talking about how teams are running on us. What kind of Kevin Durant had talked about, and kind of talking about what you kind of saw.
Yeah, I mean, Durant said it best. Their goal is to make us run. I think everyone's doing that. Jokic caught us sleeping a few times too on those long passes down the court. But I mean, the Nets, obviously, it's a lot easier when they're shooting 18 of 40 from 3, and we shot pretty poor that game. Not from 3 though, which I actually looked up. So we were 39% from 3 against the Nets. It was inside the arc that killed us. So Embiid was 3 of 14 inside the arc. Harden was 0 of 10 inside the arc. And Harris was 1 of 5. So those 3 combined for 4 of 29 from inside the 3-point line, which is crazy because, and that's Embiid's bread and butter, was in that little paint area or within that whole mid-range really this year. But if you're going 4 for 29 from inside 3, you're going to lose. I think the Nets was more about Harden just wasn't getting the calls he wanted. He seemed to do the little thing and then it wasn't getting called. And then he was just kind of left there with his arms out, and which I'm kind of fearing that's how the playoffs are going to look more like. It seems like he does get calls more regularly in the season, but in the playoffs, when it gets tightened up, when you're star versus star, I just don't think he's going to get that many calls. And it's funny being like a newly hardened Sixer fan. I used to watch him on Houston, and I used to say this as a opposing fan or someone just watching the game. You can't get these calls all the time. Like you can't shoot 100 free throws a game. But Sixer fan now, I want him to go to the line every time, but it's just not sustainable. So, hopefully he figures out how to maybe, get those mid-range shots going. I noticed he's not a huge fan of mid-range. He either has that shot 3-pointer or he's in for a layup every time. But the problem with Harden and I go to prolific scorers, obviously like AI, and it seemed like every time AI drove, and I think he said this a few times too in interviews, he envisioned exactly what he was going to do. Like he had a plan and to navigate to score. I feel like Harden drives, he just looks for that foul, and if he doesn't get it, he's kind of shit out of luck, and he doesn't know what to do once he doesn't get that foul call. Maybe it's a generational thing, but yeah, that's huge from what I saw in the net game, at least.
Yeah, Eric,
yeah.
the question I had is, are we starting to see, the first 5 games, everyone's talking about how it's, the honeymoon phase. Are we starting to see the kind of, I guess the ups and downs of when you have a new player inserted in your lineup, kind of getting used to each other? Are we starting to see that now as we play against tougher opponents?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that, but I don't think it was necessarily a James thing. Like if you eliminate the Ben Simmons whole, the Harden trade, say for instance, James came from another team, then it's just really a loss. Oh, we didn't play well, the Nets beat us. Mm-hmm. But it was so much other stuff thrown into it that kind of took the focus away. So I think it became a bigger game for the Nets. And for the Sixers, it became a Ben Simmons game.
Yeah.
But I think the Nets, like they had guys that got traded, and James left. So I think the game, their sense of urgency was there from the beginning, and they just jumped on us.
Yeah.
So that's one of those games that you have throughout the year where they're making shots, they got it going. Before you know it, you're down 20 points, and you just can't make it up in the game. You just can't make it up. That I think that was the type of game that you hit. It was just such a big game in the big stage. You didn't want it to happen on that day. So it's obvious that they're not that much, better than us. But on that particular day, it was a little disappointing because of the stage that came with it. Because that's probably the closest example that you'll get to a playoff game that we'll see this year. But I just think that for the most part, they got to address some things, because the one thing a game like that will do is it'll tell you how teams are going to play you in the playoffs, what the things are you going to have to focus on, because in those games where they feel like it's a big game, they'll game plan maybe a little more than they would have during any other regular season where they just like, okay, let's worry more about us and make a couple adjustments. How we gonna play with Joel? How we gonna play James? And then we'll figure it out from there. Whereas now you come in and it's a little different. Kyrie came in and impressed James. So a team thing, that's a personal thing because Kyrie doesn't do that every game. So, but the tide wasn't turned. Like we didn't press Kyrie, or maybe we can't, but we didn't. You know what I'm saying? So it's a little different. Their intensity was a little different from ours, not just from a scoring, but in attacking, the aggressiveness defensively. It seemed like they wanted it more. That's what it came down to.
They definitely played like the more desperate team that wanted it more. We play like more of the 2 seed that it wasn't our end all be all. But I mean, look, every game they have with Kyrie on the floor, they need to win those. They need to capitalize on those Kyrie games because the ones without him are going to be tough sledding. Durant's going to have to put up 40 plus when Kyrie.
It was almost like we're in the playoffs. They need to win to get in. That's how it almost looked.
Yeah. And the only thing that was different was that, again, that Ben Simmons aspect. Had that been some other random team that needs to get in the playoffs without the Harden Ben Simmons trade, we might have just laid an egg and not had that extra pressure on us regardless. And then, as far as, I think the Orlando game, you hit it on the head. I think we should have lost the Orlando game. When I play that game back in my head, I almost think of it as a loss. Like we did not play well at all. And then last night, I don't want to blame back-to-backs, but we definitely looked tired, and we're just so top-heavy that our starters are playing so much, especially the big 4 that we have. They played an average of 39 minutes last night on a back-to-back and traveling. That's a lot, man. And their bench lit us up more than anything. It wasn't even, their stars that did it, or Jokic that did it. It was, their bench shot 18 of 33. Ours shot 4 of 24. That's bad. That's really bad. And Michael was hitting shots hitting Matt Geiger baseline jumpers left and right, and DeMarcus Cousins looked energized, and Bones Highland just did us in. And one thing I definitely wanted to mention was, again, like we talked about it last week with Tobias getting touches. He came off a really good game against Orlando, and then last night 10-7, which it's not good for him. But what's crazy is that he had 2 shots the second half, 0 in the fourth. His last shot came with 3 minutes into the third. He didn't take a shot in the last 21 minutes of the game. That just can't happen, man. I mean, that can't.
I'm a firm believer that you have to force the issue. I know we spoke about it before. You have to force the issue to get him the ball. You got to call plays for him. I know it now. It's a little different in this, freedom of movement and positionless basketball and a lot of this stuff. But you have to make an adjustment. You have to come out of timeouts. After free throws, whatever it is, when you have a chance to gather and talk or make an adjustment, you got to make sure that you're getting him the ball. But when you have James and you have Joel, you're going to have to – those guys are going to get so many touches, so many shots. You have to force feed Tobias. You have to do it in order for him because, like you say, you'll play a half, you'll play a quarter, and you'll get 1 or 2 shots.
Yeah, and we're so top heavy that all 4 of our big guys, they have to come through every night because our bench isn't giving us. We don't have outside of Niang, who gives us that spark shot where he gives us 3 of 5, 3 of 6, and 10 points.
But how are they what are they supposed to give you? What are you thinking? Like the way that guys are playing, the way that touches are limited with starters. Now Tobias has been the number 2 option, the number 3 option, and his touches are limited. So the difference with Maxey gives you a different kind of energy where he'll run the court, he'll cut, and he'll get some shots. So he'll get some of his shots because the way he plays and sort of his energy and his speed. So he may get 3 or 4 shots just because he's running ahead of everyone.
Yeah.
Where Tobias isn't really like that. So you kind of need the sets, you need the calls for him to increase his shot attempts. But how is the bench then going to be able to get more shots if Tobias is struggling to get more shots?
It's true, yeah. And he's shooting well, too. I looked at his last 3 games, he's shooting 9 of 14 from 3. You can't ask for more than that. I mean, he's shooting well. He's hitting his open jumper.
You have to be like, and it's hard. And like if you look around the league, most third options, it's not a lot. Your shots aren't necessarily. You may get shots, but your shots aren't necessarily. I'm getting X amount of shots a game. You would like for it to be that way, but it's hard unless you make it a point of emphasis for it to happen.
But Harden as your number 2, I feel like he hasn't been ultra aggressive. I'd like to look at his field goal attempts per game, but he's not just jacking them up all the time, right? So I feel like him as your number 2.
He's your number 2, but he's your most ball dominant.
Yes.
So even if you don't take a lot of shots, you have the basketball in your hands. So a lot of, he's at times where he's not shooting, he's still deciding who's getting shots. Well, he's still the playmaker. So even though he doesn't take a shot, you still make the play, and the play doesn't always go to Tobias. So it may go to someone else. So Tobias is out there standing there. They may give him a little more attention, which means they may take away the passing angles to him. He may catch it. He's not getting clean looks because they're going to play him a little more aggressive because he's quote unquote the number 3 option. So they're not going to just leave him wide open.
Yeah.
So if they're not creating the shots for him, and he's not getting the ability or the chance, the more opportunities to create them for himself, that's why it's going to be harder to get shots, because he's not like James where he comes down, and even if James could take 12 shots and you'd be like, man, you wouldn't even tell. You would always think he took more because he always has the ball in his hands.
And free throws.
Yeah. So you can't, but with Tobias, you don't get that. Like, because his touches are usually swing the ball or I catch. I got to shoot it, I got to catch it, maybe get the play. But that doesn't always happen in the set of offense, especially if you catch it early in the clock. If he start playing early in the clock, he start playing and breaking plays, then he's going to look selfish. So he doesn't appear to be that type of guy. So it's going to be hard for him to break out on a consistent basis unless the team kind of allows it or helps him or encourages him to be that way. Because it's just hard when you have 2 options ahead of him, and one is a ball dominant guy.
And there's a question. So from last night, I saw a lot of people in the Sixers Twitter world kind of going nuts. They go, just generally fan bases go nuts on Twitter about everything. But in regards to the last play of the game, Embiid throws it to Niang for the last shot. Pretty much people were mad that somebody else should have taken the last shot. Why we know Niang's a good 3-point shooter, but he was off last night. I think he was 2 of 10 or 2 of 12 from 3 last night. He shoots the final shot of the game. Should that have been somebody else taking that last shot, or is that a big deal that Harden or Embiid didn't get that last touch?
Well, I mean, is it more of the last shot or the last 2 shots?
Yeah,
because it was the last 2 shots neither one of those guys shot. Now, if I'm a firm believer, if you're going to take the majority of shots during the game, then you got to somewhat try to get that shot, those shots at the end. I mean, he was wide open when he caught it. He wasn't wide open on the shot. I believe it was blocked. I'm saying it was blocked the way it came off. But that right there, I think that, they left him open. They gave Embiid the attention. I just think that I go back to the play before that. Like, one of those 2 got to go, and you got to make a play. I think if Joel would have made a play to the rim, attacking more, and then if you're making that pass to Niang and he takes that shot, it should be a clean look. No one should be able to contest that shot if you're going to pass to him for a shot. Otherwise, if that guy's able to still recover, then you're able to, in my book, you're able to still play. You should be able to play until you're able to get him a clean look. And I just think that he threw it. He was open when he threw it, but the guy was able to recover because Joel never really made a play to make the defense kind of react to him. He just caught it, looked, he's open, he's swinging. That's an easy recovery and contest.
Yeah. Plus, we could have gone. I think we could have gone for 2 there. We had some time, and we had a timeout left. So, 2 foul. You still have about 4 or 5 seconds left. If they miss one, you're going for 2 again. So,
well, that was the argument, which a lot of fans were upset about when Niang missed a shot. He got his own rebound. There was like about 3 seconds when he caught the rebound. Yeah, he could have kicked it out to Maxey, who was wide open at the top. But,
it's a tough loss.
It was a tough loss. And then final question as we recap the last 3 games. Kind of some people in the mainstream media were making this a big deal. After we lost to the Nets on Thursday night in that big game, that playoff leg atmosphere, there's videos of James Harden going to an after party, celebrations. People made a big deal about that. Oh, we just lost a game. He's going out and celebrating like it's like no big deal. But I think people forget that, like when people have bad days at work, they go to bars and they have drinks after a bad game. I mean, that is another day at the office for a basketball player. That's just not in a cubicle. It's on a basketball court. Eric, do you have any experiences to talk about that?
That's never been a situation where a guy have not gone out. I mean, guys can take it well, but I mean, you leave and you move on. Like, you can still be disappointed and still go out for someone's birthday party afterwards. I mean, that's not a big deal to me. Now, when you get into the playoffs, now that's a little different because it's, it's that one game and each game is a little different, and then you got to recover. And like, I think the playoffs, you may look at people sideways a little bit if they're doing that, because you're like, hey, this is the playoffs. After this is over, you can do whatever you want to do. It's free. But during the regular season, I mean, one time, I think it's, to me, it could be an issue if a guy is, partying every night. You know what I'm saying? And it's affecting his play. Then I think maybe you can probably have some concern, but I don't have any concern for one night. But I would be, interested to see if that's in the playoffs. I would be like, hey, maybe you want to kind of chill out and stay off your legs a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, AI never went out during the season or anything.
Hey, man. Hey, look. I'm not innocent of it too, so I can't blast my guy AI. So he just had all the attention, but no, he wasn't alone. He was not alone.
I'm sure other Sixers went out the other night too. It's like he's got the high profile hanging out with the rappers. That's going to be put on social media and blasted, but it's a shame. It's like everyone has bad days. And could you imagine if I, after my job, went out and it was
let me ask you this. So if we would have won and he played great, it would have been okay?
Probably wouldn't have mattered at that point, I assume.
No, I'm just saying so it's okay if he wins. So if you have a good day, you can go, but come on, no.
They want him to sulk in his room. They want him to sulk in his house and be upset about it all night.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean that he doesn't care. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. It doesn't mean that he doesn't care because you go out after a loss. Like, no different than someone going out for dinner and have a drink. If you go out for dinner and you have a drink, is it any different?
Yeah. You need to be able to let go anyway. I want the guys to let go of things and decompress and have time to kind of go on to the next game, man. It's a long season.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, you will be judged on what you do on the court and how we do on the court more than anything else. So the other stuff is irrelevant if you make it happen on the court.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's probably a bigger deal for James because he has that past with.
Well, I mean, that's why it is a big deal, because of, his quote unquote history with it.
Flying to Vegas on a back-to-back type
thing. Vegas and what he did in New York and Houston. And so that's why it's an issue, because, that's why it was an issue. Like, if you look at AI, it was an issue because people felt he did it too much or shouldn't have been doing it. But there were a lot of times when AI, we were right beside him, but no one said anything about us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So it's just what it is, and people looking at something that he's done in the past.
Must have been great for you guys. You guys, all the attention was on him going out. It was like,
Yeah, I mean, my kids tell me all the time. My kids be asking me like, how would I handle social media and all that. I'm like, man, look, I'm good. You all can have all that.
Man, it's crazy how different it is, man. It really is. It's you guys just had to really worry about the newspapers and some TV shows now and again, but now it's everyone has got the camera. It's just,
you dealt with it, but you didn't. I mean, people would come and tell you, hey, such and such said this, or they wrote that, like, but you didn't. It wasn't like
in your face all the time.
But it was really people that's what they did in their profession. You just didn't have the average person writing or saying stuff. But Philly was different though. Like, I mean, I could go to Wawa and people be like, hey, you got to shoot the ball better. You're like, it was go to a restaurant. Like, people would say it. So, but it was just, but you just kind of knew, like, that's, Philly was that's what Philly was. They passionate about the game. So but now it's just everybody has something to say.
Yep.
So it's just a part of what it is. I mean, you can criticize social media, but they all use it too to their benefit.
That's true. Yeah. You guys actually had Stephen A as your local guy at the time too.
Yeah,
so
he's a beat writer.
Man.
He's a beat writer. He's no different. He's the same way then.
Even when just more focused on just you guys then.
Yes.
Yeah, on my other podcast, I have Jason Dunn, who played for the Eagles as a tight end for a couple of years, and he always talked about in the locker room. He said we had Stephen A. Smith in there, and we'd have Howard Eskin in there. He goes, and all those guys were always looking for a story and always looking for they would make something out of nothing. And he goes, what you see on all the shows now, that's what it was in Philadelphia every day at the office.
That's what it was. It was basically all those shows and everything you see now. That was Philly.
Crazy, man. All right, so looking at the loss to Denver last night, so kind of the big story here was we saw two MVP candidates, the top two MVP candidates, face off against each other in a back and forth battle all night. So how much does I guess this is a question I was asking, and this is something that I've heard on First Take on the Hot Take shows, which how much does a one-on-one matchup weigh into an MVP race? And are you willing to say, Eric, after last night, Embiid did enough to separate himself against Jokic?
I mean, I could say that he did enough for people that's voting for him or thought that he was MVP, that he held his own. I mean, I think that Jokic has already won an MVP, and you kind of know what you get. But it was things that you could look at Joel and say, hey, he can give him trouble, or he's just as good as him, or he's better than him. However you want to say it, but I think he did enough. He definitely did enough to say that, hey, he's a real candidate, and it wouldn't shock me if he won it over a guy like Jokic, who's having another incredible season. So I think that, he solidified that. You would have wanted to play that way and win to make it even better. I mean, because that ultimately that, lightens it up for you, makes it a little better looking. But I think he did enough definitely to, stay that candidate that he is.
We got 2 years now of the same top two candidates, right? And that happened back in the day, but they play the same position too. So it's very, very comparable with these two specific guys. They play the game differently, but still, you have two centers that are going to be number 1 and 2 in the MVP voting for 2 years in a row. You wouldn't expect that in today's modern day NBA, by the way. Two centers to be the top two candidates 2 years in a row with all the shooting we have. But I thought Jokic played a very good game yesterday. I didn't think he was that dominant. I mean, his stat line's amazing, but I just didn't get that dominant feel. I feel like Embiid was just an unstoppable force last night. Not to say either one of them are easy to guard, but I feel like Embiid has more of a grasp guarding Jokic than the other way around. I think Jokic has a little more problem with Embiid because Embiid's so fast and he's got the aggressive play underneath. He could do both things, right? But they both had 5 turnovers. They both had 2 blocks. They both had really good games. I think he had a near triple-double, Jokic did. But I guess with MVP, you have to factor in what your seeding, how good your team is, offense, defense, all wrapped into one, stats all wrapped into one. I mean, I personally thought Embiid should have been MVP last year, number 1 in the East, 4th in scoring, 2nd team all defense. That's a pretty good resume, right? Because Jokic just got the offensive. His team wasn't that high in the standings, but he's also not on the first, 2nd or 1st team defense. Embiid's got all of that. He's doing it again this year. He'll probably be number 1 in scoring, top 3 East in the East, and he'll probably be 2nd team all defense again. It's like, what do you have to do to get an MVP anymore? I mean, that's almost everything wrapped into one.
Yeah, I mean, I think he gets it this year. Just going down the stretch, I believe he does, and I just think with Jokic and those guys 6 and could be 7th in the West, that's going to hurt him this season. But I just think that if you watch that game also, even though it was interesting because Jokic, he had, like, you look at his stat line, it was really good. But I don't feel like you said, I don't feel like he was dominant. I feel like they had some huge plays and huge moments by other guys.
The bench won the game.
To win that game. Whereas the Sixers was like, Joel was dominating.
Yep.
We should win. But I just didn't. I felt like I'll just say it. I felt like in that particular game, Joel was better, like a better player. Like it felt like that. Watching it, and you look at stat line, you be like, "Oh, you see the numbers this guy put up." But it didn't. If you just watch it with your eyes, I didn't feel. I felt like Joel was a better player and like a more dominant, powerful player on the court.
Yeah, I thought he had a bigger impact on the game overall. Period.
It seemed like they did most of their damage. You see the bench dominated, but like while Jokic was on the bench, that's when Boogie Cousins had those 2 straight back-to-back threes, and then I think Highland had his 2 threes, and Green had
those 2 big leads, and each time they cut them.
Yeah,
and that was a huge difference.
It's actually a really good game, but that almost felt like a playoff game in itself. Like 4-point lead, just back and forth. It was nonstop. I wish we could just kind of get past. I mean, we got to hold those big leads, man. I don't know if that's another topic for another day, but I don't know if that's a Doc thing or what, but we just give up big leads like nobody's business, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll get to that once playoffs comes around. But all right. So our final topic of the night, everyone's favorite, is the prediction segment. So our next game is against the Cavaliers in Cleveland tomorrow night. The line right now it's too early to be released because I think they're waiting to see if we take out James or Embiid for that, rest them for the next game. But this is the 3rd game of the series. The Sixers are 2-0 this year in both games. They won by 6 in one of them, and they won by 10 the other one. Who do you guys have on Wednesday night, and why?
Go ahead, Teja.
Obviously all depends on who's in and who's out. I mean, especially with our team. We did beat them by 6 and 10. They're both at Philly though, so that is a big, but both those games they had Jared Allen. No Jared Allen this time. They had a hard time stopping Embiid as it is. I think he averages 31, almost 12 and 8 against them. So, and he's been dominant even with Jared Allen. So no Jared Allen, you're going to have Mobley on him all game. That might put Mobley into foul trouble. If he gets into foul trouble, they're finished on offense. I think the spread will probably, my guess is the spread will be 2-3 us favored. If everyone's playing. This is if everyone's playing. I think we beat them by more than that. Also, a little prop nugget for you. Embiid averages 2.5 steals a game against them. That's also another little thing to throw in there. So, but I think we win. I think we win. No Jared Allen to guard Embiid, and he has a monster game against them.
Eric?
Yeah, I agree. I have us winning. I think that Joel will be a little dominant, being that hopefully he plays. He'll be dominant for them. It'll be tough. They'll have to make some adjustments. They'll have to double. They'll have to double on the catch or double early, which will, if we can knock down a few shots early, I think we can get the game. I think we're a tough matchup for them. My only concern is, like I said about the Orlando game, is they do have some young guys, especially with Garland, that can push the ball, get in that paint, and break us down defensively. So we have to make sure that we handle that part, and I think we can get the job done, dominate them in the paint with Allen out.
We got to get back on defense, man. We've been beat so many times the last 3 games, just not getting back on defense. It's just like it's so correctable too. It's so, I mean, it's frustrating.
Yeah.
That's what Harden said in his press conference last night. We have to get back on defense. That was literally a direct quote from last night. I mean, as far as Eric, I mean, what will be some ways to kind of fix that? Getting back on defense. I know it's easy to say get back on defense, but
yeah, I mean, it's effort. I mean, most of the time you don't have 5 guys going to the offensive board, so it has to be a point of emphasis. The issue with James being your lead guard is he's attacking a lot, so you have to have some rotations as far as who's filling and taking his place, getting back. So you may have to start just by releasing your 1, 2, and 3 each time until you can aggress it. Unless one of those guys are taking a shot, that's the point of emphasis. But that will also take away some of your offensive rebounding. But you have to make an adjustment and make the effort also. But you have to make an adjustment to address it to eliminate these easy baskets that other teams are getting.
I also don't think Embiid's going to sit that much the rest. I know that Doc had that report about sitting Harden and sitting Embiid, staggering them a little bit and giving time off to give him rest for the playoffs. But I think Embiid, man, I think he wants that MVP trophy. I think he wants.
I think he wants the MVP, and it's not like we're set. I mean, we're 2 or 3 right now. I mean, we could slide to 6.
Yeah.
But what do you think about that report that
if you get a 5-game losing streak or something like that, you in the playing game?
Yeah.
Because the East is tight.
You got to
Real
keep
tight.
winning. Yeah, you got to keep winning.
But what do you think about that report? A lot of hot takers online think that Doc's going to start sitting guys so we can avoid the Nets at the 1 and 2 versus the 7 or 8.
I mean, I don't mean you say you can do that, but what if Milwaukee does it too?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you're not. I understand you want to rest guys, but I don't think you can chase matchups.
Yeah.
I just don't think you can do that because you're taking away your rhythm, you're taking away your flow by taking guys out. Like if you want to rest them, then you can rest them here and there. But I don't think you can just chase a matchup because you go and then all of a sudden Cleveland's playing their best basketball, or Boston could slide to that spot. Now all of a sudden you're playing Boston, who we know always plays well against Philadelphia in the playoffs. So you just can't do that.
Yeah, it's too early to do that anyway. Maybe in the last couple of games, if you'd be like, okay, if we lose that game, we avoid Brooklyn.
One way to approach it: try to win every game you play, and just do that every time you play.
Especially for this team who has, I wouldn't say gelling issues, but they need to figure out how to play together. I mean, they just got together.
You don't want to get in any kind of position where you feel like the games aren't important and you feeling like it's okay to lose. You don't want to get into that rhythm or that flow. Any team that's won a championship, I don't think they've had that approach. Like I just don't know how you can tell people really to take your foot off the gas. No, take your foot off the gas. It's okay. Whatever happens, happens. You got to keep getting better. You got to keep improving.
I feel like Pop has done that in the past, but that was more of a calculated rest assessment rather than, hey, let's win this one but lose that one and not play them.
But they were usually already set in their position, their playoff.
That's true too. Yeah.
Whereas here, I'm just saying, like, you get on the losing streak or some other team's going to win a streak, you can slide 2 or 3 spots. Now, yeah, you may avoid the Nets, but you also starting on the road.
Yep.
the whole playoffs. So home court has to be important, and you're going to have to win some games to maintain that.
Yep.
Yeah. And another thing with the Spurs, man, that team been playing with each other for so long. So, I mean.
That's true.
Yeah. So.
They're a well-oiled machine at that point. They could do it with their eyes closed.
Yeah.
Getting to know each other still. And the amount of minutes our stars are playing.
I mean, but it was also different. It was also different as far as the amount of, practice time during the training camp. All this stuff was unlimited, and you had the back-to-backs. You had, 4 games of 5 nights, all that stuff that they don't do anymore. They eliminated all of that stuff for this reason so guys can play more.
Yep.
So Pop was doing it more because of the rules and the games and the scheduling. Everything was different than it is now because people were practicing more and playing more, and you were playing more in a shorter schedule. I think the schedule was 2 or 3 weeks shorter, same amount of games. So it's different than it is, than it was then.
It's worked too because Embiid's playing a lot. He hasn't missed that much time. He looks like he's in great shape. I think it's great that they did that.
Yeah.
Would you ever dare asking your coach for just a night off because you needed rest?
No, I wanted to play, but I had never experienced that. But I've seen guys be like they can't play because they were injured. But I've experienced guys be like, no, I'm good. I'm just take a day off. I don't, just rest. It's a back-to-back. I'll play tomorrow. Like, I just never experienced that. But, now it's okay because they make it okay.
Yep.
They allow it. So why would a guy not take advantage of it if in some cases the coaches in the team is telling them not to play? So why not? Why not? I mean, it's not like they don't get paid that day.
Yeah, there's an injury pattern there too. Like, I mean, Embiid's load management. I always understood it. How he doesn't always come for free throws. He hangs back, just trying to limit all the running.
Is load management less minutes or less playing? Taking games off? Like, if you still play 40 minutes a game, do you still play 40, take a day off, come back and play 40 again, or do you just pull back the minutes? Like that, I'm saying, what does load management mean, and how does it look? It could be different for other people. I don't know. I'm just saying it's different now, but the way they did the scheduling and the way they do the practices and training camp was supposed to be for guys to play each game unless they were injured and unable to play, but not just to take a guy out just because they don't want him to take a back-to-back. Like they were supposed to prevent that.
Mm-hmm.
I know Doc's been a big proponent of load management. He said multiple times. He said he wishes he had load management back in the day. He said he wouldn't be walking the way he walks now if load management existed before. And then with that though, he also in a press conference he talked about resting Embiid last night for the back-to-back, and he said good luck trying to rest him right now. So what does that mean? He may not be resting, and we may see Harden get his hamstring, his load management hamstring precautionary thing for tomorrow night. So I guess we'll see. But all right, guys. Well, that does it for us. Thanks for tuning in to Bleav in 76ers presented by BetOnline. For more, please follow us on Bleav in 76ers on Twitter. We'll see you guys on Friday when we preview the Luka Doncic versus Joel Embiid matchup. And that's also Dallas Mavericks. That's also the team you used to coach for, Eric.
Yeah, the Legends, Texas Legends. Yeah, they're a G League team, and have fun doing it too.
It's like the Eric Snow reunion week. We got Cleveland tomorrow. We got Dallas.
yeah, somewhat.
Snow reunion tour.
Nice.
All right, fellas. Well, we'll see you guys Friday.
All right, thank you. Take it easy.